Now for our roundtable with our News Channel 5 political analysts, Mancuso and Brian Crowley. So let's start with the topic that we just spoke about with the CEO of CareerSource Palm Beach County. It does not appear that the bill that raises unemployment benefits will pass the House, and Governor DeSantis has not come out in support of it. So Mariana, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that it's unfortunate. We know that a lot of people were impacted economically, financially when it came to the recent pandemic. And I really would have hoped that the governor would come out in support of it, although I can't say that I'm too surprised, given the legislature's main focus this session has not been actually helping Floridians, but passing hot button bills.
And Brian, I'll give you an opportunity to respond as well.
Well, when the governor sneered at the idea of that some legislators had of raising the unemployment benefit at the maximum from $275 to $375, these are not a bunch of lazy people who, want to live off $375 a week. A lot of these people were working hard before the pandemic hit. They unfortunately lost their jobs because of the pandemic, and they're struggling, many of them, and they're behind in their bills, and they're behind in their rent, and they're behind in their car payments. And, they want to work. They really do. And I think it's kind of sad that we're kind of demeaning those people.
So in your opinions, do you feel like there's no future to this?
Well, the legislature is always full of last minute surprises, so you never know. But I think it's going to be very hard for DeSantis to walk back from his comments that he was quite fine with the maximum of $275 a week.
Right, I would hope that DeSantis finds it to actually be able to walk this back, because honestly, he needs to serve Floridians. And right now, the Floridians that are hurting are looking for help. They need help right now. And unfortunately, the legislature, Republican-led, and the governor are turning their backs on them.
As you both know, there's also been really a lot of talk about businesses saying they've not been able to hire because of unemployment benefits, especially ones from the federal government during the pandemic. Do you both think that that is a reason why they're not able to hire?
Well, I think employment in the last 5 to 10 years has become much more complicated than that. I think some folks who were happy to go work as waiters or waitresses or work in the hotel industry are now more than happy to work in the gig economy. Maybe they're Uber drivers. Maybe they have another job that they're doing from home. I think that's part of the problem with, and economists are saying that's part of the problem with these industries finding people to work. I would think that Palm Beach County has a much larger question to ask about employment. Not that many years ago, we had tens and tens of thousands of people working for IBM, Motorola, Pratt Whitney, and many years before that, RCA. I mean, we were becoming the early stages of Silicon Valley right here in Palm Beach County. They all left. And in most cases, they went to states where taxes were higher and didn't have the benefits you had in Florida. Florida and Palm Beach County need to, get the answer to that question. It's sort of like Scripps was supposed to be the hub for the biotech industry. It didn't happen. Why do these industries keep going to other states? Why do they leave Palm Beach County?
I would think, to jump off of Brian's point on this, he's absolutely right. I think Florida's open for business. It's a great place to do business. It's a fantastic place to live. And I can't imagine why these huge companies would want to go to other states and pay more taxes. That to me tells me that Florida's got a PR problem when it comes to courting these massive companies to bring their headquarters here to Florida. And I do know, actually, I was speaking with the mayor down in Boca a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how they're working hard to court some of these larger businesses to come to Boca and to set up shop down there.
So do you think the unemployment issues, and just speaking of employment in general, is very different when you talk about Palm Beach County and Florida versus other parts of the country then?
Well, the same industry that's struggling to find workers, we use hotels as an example. Even before the pandemic, some hotels were changing where you could check in by yourself, which eliminated somebody working at the desk. You go into many grocery stores, including Publix, and you can find self-checkout. a lot of the jobs that used to be there for, particularly for young people, have disappeared. So it's a lot more complicated, I think, than the people who are pushing the need for jobs are letting on.
Well, and not only is it complicated, to Brian's point, but it's also difficult because a lot of the jobs that younger people were taking, we're now seeing some of the boomers take as well. So there becomes like this really like weird kind of dynamic of competition that's transpiring. And then ultimately what happens is the employer's trying to fill the spot and they've got to figure out what to do when they're not necessarily getting the right applicants or enough applicants for those positions.
All right, another big topic this week, obviously, has been the fact that we've been following this trial of the former Minneapolis police officer, Derek Chauvin, convicted of murder and the death of George Floyd. Now, right after the verdict was read, we spoke with the president of the Palm Beach County Urban League, who said that really this verdict was a small victory for everyone impacted by recent injustices. Now's the time to come together, he also said. The verdict also came, though, one day after Governor DeSantis signed that anti-riot bill into law. We didn't see any protests here or really on a broad scale, but let's talk about how we move forward from this point.
Well, I wish our leaders would lead on this issue in Florida. Governor DeSantis had very little to say after the verdict, and then at one point suggested that the jury may have ruled the way they did because of the reaction. They were afraid of the reaction from people outside. It's unfortunate that our governor would say something like that. There are complex issues. Look, when I was a young kid growing up in Palm Beach County, we were segregated. There was the separate bathrooms for African Americans, separate drinking fountains, separate schools, and that was the 60s. This is not, this is still relatively new. And we need to have some really serious conversations on how we move forward, because I unfortunately am not convinced that despite the verdict in the George Floyd case which I think was a tremendously wonderful verdict, I'm not sure it's going to change a lot.
Mariana, you have about 30 seconds or so would love to get your response as well.
Absolutely. I think the Chauvin verdict here, first and foremost, that was accountability. We saw what happens when the law is broken. The person is held accountable, regardless of where they come from or their race, creed, religion, whatever. Justice is blind, and it was executed as such. I think it's important to understand this conviction should be served as a catalyst for change, and it's the landmark moment for our country to fight for racial justice. And this can be a turning point, but only if we lean in, continue, we don't lose focus, and remain clear that Black Lives Matter.
All right. Thank you both for your insights as always. We'll be back in just a moment.